Let me take you back 6 years ago. I was nothing. No name, no money, no self-worth. Just a 23-year-old woman trapped in a gilded cage built by people who smiled with their mouths but gutted me with every word they said. Started with my stepmother, Liliana, a master manipulator with designer clothes and a tongue sharper than broken glass. She made sure my father's inheritance skipped me entirely. "You're too unstable to handle money," she told the lawyers, squeezing out crocodile tears. She'd always said I was too emotional like my mother, the one woman she never let me forget Dad loved more. Then came my ex-husband, Reza. God, if arrogance could walk, it would look exactly like him. First, he was charming, textbook narcissist. But the moment the wedding was over, so was the mask. I became his emotional punching bag. Lazy. Stupid. Useless. He said all of it, sometimes in front of others. I worked 2 jobs while he slept until noon and flirted with anything in a skirt. But he was my husband, right? I was supposed to make it work. And let's not forget Reza's mother, the witch with a pearl necklace. She said I was infertile, I wasn't, a disgrace, subjective, and even told her son he deserved someone more refined. She once called me a charity case with lipstick. Their poison turned my own family against me. Even my cousins, who I'd helped through college, called me a burden and stopped answering my calls. I was alone. But here's the thing they all underestimated. I don't break. I sharpen. Took years. Years of swallowing rage and wiping tears in silence. Years of night classes, scrubbing toilets, saving every cent. I built myself from the dirt they threw on me. Fast forward to today, I'm 29, CEO of my own startup-turned-corporation. You'd know the name if I said it. We recently acquired 3 smaller companies to merge departments under one roof, and HR brought in all legacy staff for reevaluation and reassignment. And guess who walked into my office last week in a gray janitor uniform with a bucket and mop? Reza. The man who used to spit at my ambitions, who divorced me because I would never be anything, was now mopping my marble floors. He didn't recognize me at first. I've changed. Not just my name, everything. The way I dress, walk, speak. He looked up at me with dead eyes and said, "Sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you, ma'am." I looked at him and smiled. "Oh, you've disturbed me before." But not anymore. Took him a second. Then the color drained from his face. I watched the moment it hit him like a truck. But this isn't just about Reza. Not even close. This is about everyone who tried to bury me. Liliana. Reza's mother. My so-called family. Every single one of them is about to feel the ground shift beneath their feet. Because now, I own the building. And this is just the beginning. After that first encounter, Reza avoided eye contact with me like I was death in heels. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. His silence was louder than his insults ever were. But I had waited too long, suffered too much, to just let karma do its slow crawl. I wanted precision. I wanted to engineer his downfall and everyone else's. See, when you grow up being emotionally waterboarded by people who are supposed to love you, you learn to read lies like second language. You learn to listen more than you speak. Every eye twitch, every shift in tone. And I used that knowledge, not to survive anymore, but to hunt. Let's rewind a little. When my company acquired his old employer, I made sure every employee had to go through a reapplication process under a new structure. Most of the staff assumed it was routine. Reza didn't even recognize the name of the new holding company, Asina Corporation. He wouldn't. I named it after the mythological she-wolf who raised abandoned children into warriors. Poetic, really. His resume was weak. But I saw an opportunity. I told HR to give him the janitorial position. The lowest pay grade. No benefits. No severance clause. Then I added a clause to his contract, buried under legal jargon, that allowed us to audit and seize any property or intellectual material from his prior employment if found misused. You can imagine why this matters later. He signed it. Without question. I watched it happen from behind the tinted glass of the observation room. His hand shook a little. It was the first thread of the web I was weaving. A few days later, I dropped the next seed. I made sure Reza was on cleaning duty during the executive team's late-night brainstorm sessions, where I conveniently mentioned an upcoming intellectual property merge and how we had to be extra cautious about prior leaks or stolen frameworks. He flinched. Subtle, but there. You see, what I knew, and what he didn't know I knew, was that he had stolen proprietary code from his old company just before the acquisition. A little side project he tried to sell off quietly when things were falling apart. I had the receipts. Literal ones. He thought no one noticed. He thought he was smarter than the system. But I am the system now. I had him in my hand. All I needed was for him to panic and do something desperate. And right on cue, he did. 2 nights ago, our cybersecurity team pinged me at 2:11 a.m. An unauthorized USB device had been connected in the tech room. Guess who was cleaning that floor? I had the footage. The login logs. The fingerprints. Hell, even the time-stamped video of him trying to cover the security camera with a mop. Amateur. But I didn't confront him. Not yet. 'Cause this isn't just about Reza. There are 3 more monsters who need to watch him fall before they meet their own ruin. And the best part? They're all going to walk into the trap I've set. One by one. Through setting the trap for Reza, I turned my attention to the woman who taught me what emotional starvation truly feels like. Liliana. My stepmother. She used to call me her charity case in front of guests, always with that nauseating laugh, sweet on the outside, acid underneath. She replaced my mother's photos with portraits of herself, gave away my childhood dog while I was at school, and once told me that if I disappeared, no one would notice for days. She married my father for the money. And when he got sick, she made sure I was pushed far, far away. I was 17 when he died. I wasn't even told until 2 days later. And somehow she got everything. She sold our house. She sold my father's antique book collection, the one we used to read from every night before bed. She said it was all just dust and sentiment. No one believed me when I said she manipulated the will. I didn't have proof. But I didn't forget. Last week, I sent her an email from my assistant's address. We are currently seeking investors for an exclusive luxury real estate venture under the Ascena Corporation. Due to your impressive property portfolio, our executive team would like to extend a private invitation to discuss a lucrative partnership opportunity. She responded within minutes. Of course she did. Liliana is addicted to 2 things, money and being the smartest person in the room. I scheduled a meeting at one of our high-rise development sites. Floor-to-ceiling glass. Views of the city. Power moves only. I wore a white silk blouse, the exact one she once said made me look like a poor girl playing rich. She walked in like she owned the place. Her heels echoed across the marble. She didn't recognize me, not immediately. I let her talk. About her taste in design. Her love of clean money. Her fake European accent. Then I leaned forward and said, "Do you remember what my father used to call you behind closed doors?" She blinked. "He called you a hungry snake with perfume on." Liliana froze. And then very slowly she realized. "You?" "Yes," I said. "Me." Color drained from her face, just like Reza's had. But unlike him, Liliana didn't panic. She smiled. "You think you've won something," she said. "But I still have his name. I still have everything." I leaned back calm. Not for long. 'Cause I had hired a forensic accountant 2 years ago. Quietly. Painstakingly. We traced every shady move, every offshore transaction, every falsified receipt tied to my father's estate. And I had handed that entire file to the tax authorities 3 weeks ago. The audit started this morning. She didn't know that yet. Not until her phone buzzed mid-meeting. She glanced down. Her hands started shaking. But I wasn't done. "Oh, and one more thing," I said, standing up. "Do you remember the land deal you did under the name Elias Jaya Properties?" She went still. "That name was copyrighted in our system 2 days ago. By me. So that shady development you've been pouring millions into? I now legally own the brand." Her lipstick smile cracked for the first time in years. I walked away, leaving her sitting there with her empire crumbling quietly beneath her Louboutin heels. But I didn't feel relief. I felt rage, 'cause Liliana was a symptom, not the disease. There were 2 more left. And next was the woman who told me I was unworthy of being a mother, while protecting a son who couldn't even protect himself. You'd think hell wears red lipstick and heels. Mine wore a pastel cardigan and smelled like rosewater. Raisa's mother, Deanie, didn't scream, didn't slap, didn't raise her voice. No. She whispered her venom, with a hand on your shoulder and a smile on her face like the final pat before a plunge off a cliff. She was a master manipulator. The kind who didn't just hate you, she made you hate yourself. Slowly. Quietly. Tensionally. She told me when I was newly married that my skin would darken like my ambitions, burnt and ugly. That I should dress more modestly. No one wants to see desperation in silk. And the cruelest one? When I miscarried at 9 weeks, she sat beside me on the hospital bed and said, "God doesn't give children to broken women." Broke something in me. Something that stayed cracked for years. But this part of the story isn't just about her cruelty. It's about her secret, and how I turned it into her public unraveling. 4 years she paraded her charity work, a foundation for women's health and dignity, and leveraged it into clout. She raised funds, hosted galas, and posed in magazines as the perfect example of elite motherhood. But I knew what she really did with the money. And finally, I had the proof. A woman named Lita came forward. She was 19 when she met Deanie. Pregnant. Alone. Vulnerable. Deanie promised her shelter, food, health care, all under her Women of Grace Foundation. Instead, she was exploited for labor, emotionally manipulated, and forced to give her baby up under illegal conditions. Lita wasn't the only one. I connected the dots, stories that were never meant to surface. I hired a documentary team under a fake wellness project and interviewed 3 former victims. I cross-checked Deanie's foundation's transactions with the businesses where these women were placed. Then I leaked it to one of Indonesia's most fearless investigative journalists. I made sure the exposé would go live exactly 12 hours before the Women of Grace annual gala, the one with national TV coverage, sponsors, and full media attendance. And I made sure Deanie was already mic'd up for her opening speech when the news hit Twitter. I watched it unfold live. Her voice trembled. Porters' phones lit up in the audience. A sponsor walked out mid-applause. The headline hit the screen 5 minutes later. Behind the veil, charity queen accused of exploiting vulnerable mothers. She tried to keep talking. She couldn't. Her smile broke. Then her posture. Then her entire persona. And yet, I didn't feel triumph. I felt grief. The old kind. For the girl I used to be, the one who had begged Deanie to love her like a mother. She never did. But now? The world would never love her again either. I thought it would end there. It didn't. 'Cause someone else had seen what I did. Someone I didn't know was still watching. My cousin. The one who betrayed me when I needed her most. Family betrayal cuts differently. Doesn't just hurt, it mutates you. Turns your memories into minefields. And my cousin Era? She was the landmine I never saw coming. We grew up like sisters. She braided my hair on my first day of school. She held my hand at my father's funeral. I told her things I never told anyone, even the time I'd thought of running away and never coming back. She told me I was stronger than that. I believed her. Until the night I found out she sold me out to Liliana. It was 4 years ago. I was working 2 jobs trying to save for a paralegal course. I'd been quietly building a case to reopen my father's will. Finally found a retired lawyer willing to help. Era offered to review the paperwork for me, said she knew someone who might fast-track the process. She gave it all to Liliana. The lawyer got threatened. The documents disappeared. I was left humiliated again, and Era ghosted me the moment I confronted her. I didn't hear from her for years. Not until the night Deanie's scandal went viral. She texted me. "We need to talk. It's about Reza. Please." I didn't reply right away. I didn't want to. But something about the message, it wasn't desperation. It was fear. I agreed to meet her. Neutral ground. A rooftop cafe. Public but quiet. She looked different. Skinnier. Nervous. Her once flawless makeup now trying too hard to cover dark circles and regrets. "I didn't know what they were going to do," she said, voice cracking. "Liliana. Reza. Your mom-in-law. They were all in it together. They wanted you broken. What did you give them, Era?" I asked. She didn't answer at first. Just reached into her purse and handed me a flash drive. It's everything. The emails. The money transfers. The recordings. Even one from Reza. He knew about your miscarriage. He told his mom on purpose. Said it would shut you up for a while. I didn't know. I swear. The air around us felt too thin. I took the drive. I didn't thank her. Not yet. She looked up at me, eyes glossy. "I want to make it right." I stared at her for a long moment, then said, "You don't get to make it right, but you can help me finish this." That night, I plugged the drive into my encrypted server. The files were real. Emails between Reza and his mother mocking my trauma. Audio of Liliana discussing how to freeze my inheritance using a fake psychologist's report. Even bank transfers made in Era's name to cover bribes. They were all drowning in guilt, they just didn't know it yet. But I wasn't satisfied with exposure anymore. No. They had spent years orchestrating the erasure of me. My identity. My worth. My future. Now I would erase them from their own legacies. And it would start with Reza. Because tomorrow morning, he would be escorted out of the company he thought was beneath him, and directly into something he could never mop his way out of. It's funny how everything changes when you realize just how much control you truly have. 4 years I had let them define me. My ex-husband, my stepmother, my mother-in-law. They built their world around me, and I was always just a shadow, a pawn in their game. But now I was the one pulling the strings, weaving the threads of their destruction. It all came to a head in one final moment. Reza had been trying to play it cool, but I could see the desperation behind his eyes. The janitor's uniform, the cleaning supplies in his hands, the downward spiral he'd fallen into, none of it was enough to hide the shame. He thought he could get away with it. But I had already made my move. Every time he walked past my office, his eyes would flicker toward me, but he couldn't look too long. Tension was palpable. And I knew he was counting down the days until he was fired. But I wasn't going to let him off that easy. Tomorrow was the day. I set up a meeting with Reza in the conference room. I could tell he wasn't expecting it. He probably thought it was just another cleaning assignment, nothing too threatening. Little did he know, I had already orchestrated his fall from grace. The room was empty, silent except for the soft hum of the AC. I had arranged for a team of auditors to go through his financials in the morning, and they were already waiting for me to call the shots. They were going to seize everything, his assets, his debts, his reputation. When he walked in, I could see the tension in his shoulders, the tightness of his jaw. "What is this about?" he asked, trying to sound casual. I didn't waste time with pleasantries. "I'm firing you, Reza. Effective immediately." He froze, disbelief spreading across his face. What? You can't. Oh, but I can, I said, my voice steady. I own this company. I've been pulling the strings long enough to know when someone's been hiding behind a mask. You're a fraud, Reza. You were never the man I thought I married. You were just a coward. He opened his mouth to argue, but the words caught in his throat. I didn't let him speak. Instead, I dropped the bombshell. You've been under investigation for embezzling funds, Reza, I said. And now we've found the proof. His face drained of color as I handed him a folder. Inside were the financial records, the wire transfers, the hidden accounts. He hadn't just stolen from the company. He'd been siphoning money for years, using his position to hide the trail. I knew about every dollar, every transaction, and now so did the authorities. You were always a weak man, Reza. A liar. You didn't just fail me. You failed yourself. I stood up, my heart pounding in my chest, but this time it was with triumph, not fear. But there was one last thing I needed to do. The one person who had been in on all of this, the one who had manipulated my entire life from the shadows, Liliana. I wasn't going to let her off so easily. I scheduled a meeting with her, a final confrontation. I didn't expect it to go smoothly. Liliana was too sly to be caught by anything as simple as a spreadsheet. But I had a plan. When she walked into my office, her expression was smug. Confident. She thought I was still the same naive girl who let her stepmother ruin her life. "Ah, you're finally getting it, huh?" she said, as if she was the one in control. I didn't respond at first. I simply watched her, her perfect makeup, her pristine appearance, all a mask for the evil underneath. Then, with calm precision, I pressed a button on my desk. Projector word to life. The screen flashed images, the proof of her corruption, her dealings with shady figures, the money laundering operations she'd run under the guise of charity. The lies she'd told the public, the people she'd betrayed. She gasped. How? You can't. You think I'm stupid, Liliana? I said, standing up. You think I didn't know what you were doing? I let the silence stretch between us. You're done. You have nothing left. And I'm taking everything you ever stole from me. Starting now. Liliana's composure cracked. Her perfect facade shattered like glass, and I knew it was only a matter of time before the authorities caught up to her. She had nowhere to run. I left the room. I didn't feel the need to watch her break down. The real satisfaction wasn't in seeing her fall. It was knowing that for the first time in my life, I was the one in control. I was the one who'd taken back everything they'd stolen from me. My dignity. My power. My future. I stepped out of the building, the cool air of the city hitting my face. I breathed deeply. It was over. But the journey had made me stronger. And I would never let anyone define me again.